Hello, Stroglines, and today I'm actually going to do an intro to using syntax and more importantly why you should use syntax. So while I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of code, I'm going to go over this outline I have of why you should use code. I've been teaching using syntax and macros for, I don't know, at least a decade, and it's funny, it didn't dawn on me that just helping explain why it's so important and how much time it can save you and effort and energy and speed up your output. It's amazing. So I wanted to go over this. Now there's obviously there's a lot of reasons and a lot of different reasons that people will think differently about. I have created my list of stuff that in priority of how I think they are most beneficial. So let's start off with them. And first off, you'll be surprised to hear this, but you actually, in a sense, do use syntax. SPSS when you're using the GUI window. And here, I'll prove it here. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say File, Open, Data File, and I'm sure you've seen this 1,000 times, and maybe you have an idea of what it does. But I can hit Open, or I can hit Paste. Right? Open literally will run the code, the syntax. It pastes it to a hidden window and then runs it. I'm going to hit Paste, and so you'll see here it dumps it into my syntax window for me. Right, and we're going to make it a little prettier. Now, let's also, just so for this video it'll make more sense, let me go over some ground things with SPSS syntax. What it does is it looks all the way back. Let me rephrase this. On this one, it'll go from this period to the previous period, and it runs. So if I click here and I run, it would run this code. If I click up in here, it'll look back, but there's nothing behind it. That's why I want to start with this one. So basically, make sure each end of your line ends in a period, because otherwise it'll try to combine them together, and then it won't run, and you'll hate me because it every once in a while you realize that you pasted something and didn't have the period. So once you have your syntax, and I'm going to go ahead and run. I'm going to highlight both. You don't have to. Because there's a period separating these, I have to go across. So I can do it like this. I could do it all. It doesn't matter. As long as I'm somewhere in here and in here, like this. This will work fine too. And we're going to hit... I just realized in this version I don't have my run button, which is crazy. Because in the other version I do. So I'm not used to... Try not to laugh. I'm not used to using the GUI. So trying to think of where in the world that is. You know what, I can just hit Control R, and it's going to run it. So Control R went and ran that code, which opened this data file. Alright, so that was the very first one. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you have certain files you work with a lot, and you realize that you can, hey, you know what, you just go to the syntax file, and you can repeat opening the same file, and then of course you can rename variables in it, and then save it, and all of that will be in your code, and so you don't have to keep redoing it. And it allows you to also to go back and reset variables, make changes that you didn't like. So let's say I came in here and I had deleted this variable, and later I realized, darn it, you know what, I had saved this thing for, I'd spent hours on making my data set, I saved it, and then suddenly I realized, darn, I really wish I hadn't deleted that variable. Now somehow I have to go back, and then you're going to have to manually do all this stuff in your GUI. Well, if it's in your syntax, I can just come back and run these and reopen the data file. So I never overwrite my main source file, right? That's the other nice thing to remember is keep your source separate, keep it always the same, write different data files so you can keep updating them, and you can always just rerun and go back and make a tweak. Like let's say, so one of the big benefits is renaming variables. Let's say that I wanted this first one. See here, it's Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, Sprite, Mountain Dew. You know what? I'm gonna do a little screenshot here. Oops, I missed the Sprite. Let me try it again. I have a little program that does screenshots. Comes in real handy. And I'm gonna do these guys, right? So I know it's these two. So I'm gonna come over to my syntax view and say rename. You can type var or variables, I believe. I always type var, but I'm trying to keep it more concise for this video. And var 505 equals, well, let's make it proper, Pepsi. And I believe this command actually, you really want to have the parens in there. VR 506 equals diet Pepsi. And normally what I would do is I have some other little cheat things, but let me go ahead and finish this. Var 507. And most of SPSS syntax is not case sensitive. However, if you do capitalize like the new name, it'll be capitalized. So sprite. And you also cannot start variables with a number. And there's a lot of other illegal characters, and I have a post which talks about that. So 7 var 508 equals mount do. And here, I could keep typing, it doesn't really matter. But here, I'm going to type var 509 equals other. Oops, I didn't get my print. Now, notice also this let's go ahead and get rid of these. This is red here, which is indicating there's a flaw, there's something wrong, right? Well, when I add the period, hopefully, if I typed all this correctly, it says, hey, it's okay, I understand what this is supposed to be, because it's not trying to keep looking and looking. So now, when I run this, and this is a hot command, which means the second I run it, and let me see if I can split this a little here. Here we go. So when I run this, you're going to see up here, oh, looks like I misspelled something. Var 505, 506, 507. Man, var 505, var 505. Oh, is that? You know what? Those are O's, aren't they? Oh, the joys. What I was going to say earlier is what I usually do also is I come in here and I copy this, and I'll paste it, and then I don't have to worry about. I can be a pretty horrible typist at times, and so those sure looked like zeros to me, but yeah, I can see now they're O's. Isn't that fun? And let's put this here. So this is the joys of coding. There. Now I also have a script which here we go. So this script, this empty script, it's going to empty my output window, which will get rid of the errors that we saw. And then, with any luck, now I have this right, I'm going to run this. And I don't have to reopen the data file because I didn't actually change any names. So I'm going to run this. Notice all that blanked. Come back to the data file. So now I have my variable names. Now again, not a big deal because I could have come in here before and typed them, but when you keep re-exporting a new data file and then having to go update the names, this can save you a lot of time. So there's the renaming that, and then setting the value variable labels. So I'm going to come in here, and so here again I'm going to cheat. Now that I've done this, I'm going to copy these and come in here, and I'm going to say var labels, and I'm going to paste these, and then so now I know those are right, and I'm going to come in here and put the guts of it, and remember to put the period, right, and say Pepsi rocks. I'm just going to show you can add, and I know that doesn't make sense, but in variable names you have to be very selective, and you can't have spaces. Here in the labels you can put pretty close to whatever you want. It's pretty robust, and even if you wanted a line break, so if I wanted to say, you know what, it's been a real long time since I've done this, I think it's that Mountain Dew and other. So now when I run this, we'll see the variable names change, and this looks funny here, right, this slash in, and if I did it right, let's do a frequency, open of course in the other window, and we'll just do it of Mountain Dew, and let's see if it worked the way I wanted it to. So see how here it says mountain, and then it goes to the next line that says Dew. If I wanted that in my report, that's one way I can insert that in there, which is just a handy trick to be able to know how to do. I think about 8 people in the world know that. Most people don't use it, but it does come in incredibly handy. So again, you go and you export your data, and here I can just run these, and I can realize later, oh, I had a typo on my label. I can go back and just change it. It shouldn't have been that, and just rerun it, and then it'll go update the label. So see, these are changing here. These didn't change because I didn't mess with them. I'm looking at my little cheat sheet here of what's next. So define format. So let's say these are they're binary. They're zeros and ones. Let's say really I wanted SPSS to treat those as ordinal variables or nominal. So I'm going to say var or variable level. And here's another nice little thing you can do is when you have sequential variables, I can list the first one, so Pepsi, and just so I can point out 2, I don't have to capitalize. So Pepsi, and then you put a space, and then you can put the word 2 in a space. Doesn't have to be caps. I'm just doing it for show. To other, right? So it's gonna look at everything between, including Pepsi to other, and I'm gonna set these variable labels to nominal. So I don't, even though actually I do want to compute means off them, but for this, in here, where I'm looking up here is oh darn, they are set to nominal. Okay, which is fine. And you know what? This is ridiculous. Okie dokie, it's going crazy. So where did my measure? Okay, so here it's nominal, right? So that actually the code wouldn't have done anything. But I'm going to change it to scale because I like to compute means of these things. Because if you compute the mean of a 0 and a 1 variable, it turns into the percent. So I'm going to run that, and notice all of these just turn to scale, right? And again, not a big deal if you have one final data set. You only do this once, but in my experience, it's the exception rather than the rule that actually happens. It just, you always go back and re-import and then have to reapply your labels and type them manually. And a lifetime ago I used to do that. And now I always break it down to have a syntax file because it just allows me to go back and make a tweak and go back and even start from scratch, right? I can rerun the whole thing. Now this is going to open the data file, changes the variable names, changes the labels, and assign these to be scale. So let's see, what else? And just as an example, I'm going to change these back. Well, we'll do ordinal. So there's nominal, ordinal, and scale. So now, see, these are back to ordinal. So if you had like age groups, right, that's a good one. Or battery size, not that anyone ever has that, but years of work in the workforce where it's a groups. Most grouped variables, where you did a range and you didn't want to be too intrusive in your survey, will be some sort of an ordinal variable. And so storing it that way helps make sure that when you do frequencies on it, it'll be correct in the order you want. So let's get these. I do want to keep these as scale because I actually might use that in the demo later. Now, just an overall concept is everyone has short timelines. Years ago, research, especially when we were doing mail stuff, market research could take months and months to do research, collect your data, get the report, and the client, you get it back to them in a quarter, and they were ecstatic. Now it's like weeks or even a week, and the people want the results right away. And so what I do is I start my survey. I first test the questionnaire, make sure you test it, send it out, look at the responses, feel good, okay, clear the data, send it out for real, collect a couple dozen responses, and then export your data file, right? So in your data file, and I think in this one here, this is what it was just an example test thing. I exported it, and I have 30 variables, but it gives you enough to work with where you can start writing your syntax of, oh, you know what, I want to change the names of these variables, I want to add these labels, I want to do this stuff. You don't have to wait until your entire survey is done fielding to do those things. And it can save you an amazing amount of time, because not only can you get your data set working in the format you want it. So here also, I would go in here after I get it. Let's pretend I'm done. I would then, and let's just do it the GUI way. So I can hit SPSS, and now again, don't overwrite, right? So I'll just insert a number, and I'm going to hit paste. And paste in SPSS, it always, unless you change the setting, which it does have, will dump it at the very end of the code, right? So here now it's going to save. I'm going to run this, and it's going to save this, and you'll see on this window now there's a 1 here, right? I can start doing my analytics. That's usually what I do. Is I write my first half. Actually, I have several different syntax files. One is for importing and getting into the format I want and transforming them, and the other one is for doing the analytics. So here I would, you know what? Let's see. We can get, yeah, because I only added a 1, right? You're close enough to it. So I'm just going to paste this here. Now I'm going to get the new data file, and I just build this in here, right? And commenting out, you can either start with an individual line, you can start with the backslash or a asterisk. And so I am going to start my analytics. And let's put a few more breaks in there. Okay. And let's move this down so we can keep it up, and I'll make the window a little smaller so you can see the data file. Alright, so let's say I had wanted to do, I want to know what percent of people chose these options, right? Well, I could do frequencies on them, right? I could do frequencies on these, which will work fine, and I'm going to hit paste, and so it dumps it into my window. Oh, way at the bottom, sorry. And so when I do this, it gives them to me separately. And it gives them to me, it does give me the percents, right? But what I really want, I want to be able to graph this, probably in Excel. And a great way when you have a dichotomous variable, oh, you know what? So here's a these are zeros and ones. These are numbers. Well, let's stick with the zeros and ones here first. So because I know that 0 is unchecked, let's show this real quick. 0 is unchecked, 1 is checked. Right? That's basically a 0 is a no and a 1 is a yes. So instead of doing frequencies, I'm going to do descriptives. And it's been so long since I've pushed the button for it. I'm just going to type it. I can't remember. So, and you can type DESC, and so again I can use my little cheat sheet. So Pepsi to other period. Now when I do it this way, and I can also say, I can specify what I want. Slash, I think it's stats equals n min max. I wouldn't want the sum. I think it has mode or medium. One of the two. Let's give it a try here and see what happens. Oh, no mode, so median. I have no idea why they did not include median in there. Or not that. There we go. Okay, so there's 31 cases, but notice how these are side by side. Oh, I don't. Where did my frequencies go? I'll just rerun. Oh, you know what? I have the syntax here. I'll just put them here. So see how these are all broken out separately? And yes, I could go look at them, but when they're side by side, and this is just funny because, oh, here it is, actually right here. So I know min and max doesn't make sense in this, but this can help you spot outliers and makes it very convenient. But I could easily, let's take this, copy it, open Excel, bring it over. When you put this, for some reason my version of SPSS, when I'm copying it, there we go. It looks funny. So when you go like this, I can come in here, do this, and oops, I shouldn't have grabbed all those. There we go. So now I have a nice bar chart with the labels the way I want them. The only thing different is that I should have come in here, and I think I can do it this way. Let me sort them the other way. So now they're sorted in the order I want them. I can very quickly make a graph, right, in Excel because they're sequential, right? So it's a really nice to be able to use descriptives in the 0 to 1. But again, you can start putting in a bunch of these, and you can go pages and pages of syntax at writing a report, and then maybe what you do is you at the beginning you filter a certain region and you rerun your analytics, and it's just so much easier than redundantly going back over and over and clicking the GUI buttons. So that's another. And so where I was going with that, tying it back together with the work ahead, is you do all this, you build the syntax the way you want, and then you save it, and then when your study is finally done, you export the raw data file, and you then either overwrite your original one, or I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend over in this one. I would just save it maybe in the same directory, and then you come here and you change the name to open that file, and you can just cruise through and run your entire code in all the things that you did. So for all the things for transforming and saving your data file are done, and then even the report, right, the output is all done. Great time saving. Both it's time saving and also just the efficiency of getting things done. So another one I just want to mention, because it's a huge one, is macros. And the reason why, like when I'm typing these things, I have a hard time because I don't even use these anymore. So I'm not going to explain macros, but first you have to define them. And I just want to give you a quick example of macros allow you to repurpose a lot of the code that you do. So if I type DECDES, so this is my describer macro, and I'm going to say Pepsi to other. So here, that's why I couldn't remember what actually options were there, because I don't even type those anymore. And it is predefined to go in to set it in a certain order. So here, if I change this to a D, it'll flip the order. And so notice it'll invert it. These other errors, this is because the script that I have inside this macro is trying to add this title, and I just haven't updated. I don't think it'll work in here, but because it's for an older version, yeah. But macros are amazing, and they can save you just an amazing amount of time. So it's you can repurpose your code that you've done on other data sets, so you don't have to remember how you did stuff. You can just go in, get the new, and let's see, I even have, so I have this one, so I could have just typed, and notice here, it's providing right here, this is what I normally do, is just run this, and it gives me exactly what I want. In the other program, I actually have it flip the columns for me as well, because I want the mean right next to this, and that way I can graph it easier. So that's another huge advantage of using syntax. If you're relabeling or defining missing, or like here, this is often stuff in survey tools will define things with these values, and I want them as zeros and ones, right? So I'm going to just save this here, not that it matters, but the one. So I'm going to come in here and say recode, and actually this is really nice because I can say recode var7 to var9, so I can go across them, okay? And I'm going to say 10011 equals, the 1 is a yes, and 10012 equals a 0, which is a no, right? So to speak. Now when I run this, the labels aren't going to change, but so in SPSS, if you hit Control T, it'll switch you between the data view and the variable view. It's the same thing as this, right? So Control T toggles between that. It's a nice shortcut. Now here, this is set up to show me the variable labels, but you can come up here and say, I don't want to see the labels. I want to see the actual values, right? And that is crazy because look at this. There's no 1001, so I don't know what they were doing there. So that's crazy. Let's use Excel here real quickly. 10011 and 10012. I'm going to copy these. I'm just going to put in a bunch of these so you can get an idea of what this would have done. And that was... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. The other nice thing with syntax, because I can go reopen a data file, if I want, I can be careless and I can say, you know what, I'm trying to focus on these new variables. I'm going to go ahead and just clear out these. I'm going to delete them, right? Because I have my real data file, I don't really care. And let's just keep the focus on, we're going to... Come on. Oh, sometimes SPSS can just be so fun. So clear out those. Okay. Back to the syntax. So now when I run this, it's going to recode, it's going to look to say var7 to var9, right? And it's going to say, okay, where you find 1011, make that a 1, and 1012 equals a 0. So I can run this now. This recode, you need to do an execute. So either I type execute period, and that'll turn blue, or exe works fine as well. I don't know why the syntax highlight doesn't recognize it, but either one works. Now when I run this, well, you know what? Let me show you here the reason before I recode it. So I'm going to copy from here, and so now I'm going to run my descriptives, and notice here, right, I have these crazy means, which of course are meaningless. Excuse the bad pun. However, if we recode them, now let's get back to the data file and run and recode. Right now, see that they're now zeros and ones. Okay. Now, if I run the descriptives, suddenly these things make they're meaningful. They may not seem meaningful until you've played with data enough to realize, but this here is the same thing. Notice if we do, and you know what, I should have done it in the original. Let me go back and get the original file. Well, not the original, the one we saved here. I'm going to open this file up. I don't know why that didn't work. Oh, come on. Well, I don't understand why that's not opening. So there we go. And now I'm going to do frequencies on those variables, and that was var 7 to 9. 7 to 9. And just so as long as you understand what this 57, 16, 63. So here's the 57, 57.1. There's just, I need another decimal place to have it match exactly. Is yes for the cookies. 60 is ice cream. 60 and 0.63, 0.62 or 62.5. Sorry, is here. The other great thing about this, besides that I can graph it easily, is because I can sort them. I don't have to try to look at these and then figure out the order. Right, doing it this way automatically allows me to sort them in ascending or descending. Okay. So let's also say we wanted to take care of some missing. Let's say some people dropped out. Like all these people here actually did see. I know it doesn't look like it, but you know, let's do more of a real world. Let's clear these guys and see these missing values. Let's pretend that those missing values really should have been zeros. They saw the question, they didn't answer it. I want to say they didn't select it. Okay, so I am going to come in here and I'm going to say recode and say, let's see, for that, if actually that one's a little different. Oh no, I'm sorry. There's 3 different ways to do missing in SPSS, and it's just ridiculous. If missing, I think I can put a comma here. No. I'm going to try one. Oh, I got an execute right beneath it. Let's try this and see what happens on that var 7. So see it put in zeros? And I think it's been a long time since I've tried to do multiple in one time. No, because that's going to put them into different ones. So I'm just going to cheat and copy this and make this 9, 8, 8, 9. Now, when I come in here, I'm going to recode these. I'm going to go ahead and run them all sequentially. So it's going to convert these both to this, but the zeros, the nulls, of course, won't change. However, when I do all of it, you'll see now there is no missing data, right? And it's not always appropriate to do that, so don't misunderstand me. But sometimes you say, you know what, I want those missing values to actually be zeros because they did see the question. And so now, when you actually compute the stats, and let's stick with this one, you'll see the numbers, these numbers right here, will slightly change, right? Well, more than slightly because my sample size is so small. And notice here, this said N, 7, 10, and 8. And this one is 13, 13 and the valid across because there is no missing data. So, again, if you're playing with your data file and doing that manually over and over and over, it can be a life drain, right? So there are, by the way, I want to mention, I don't have an example right in front of me. It's usually in the advanced stat stuff, but some things are only available in syntax, which sounds crazy, but sadly it's true. And there's also very few that are only available through the GUI. I think I only know of one of missing data, multiple response sets. Okay, so the last one, let's see, let me look at my little cheat sheet. The last one I want to cover is if you're going to mine some data in so let's say I'm going to get this variable name here, go back to my syntax. Oops. Actually, I can go ahead and close this out now. Come back to here. I'm going to recode. So here's another nice. Oh, and another one is to resorting. Oh man, I should have put that in my bigger list because it's really helpful. And let me demonstrate it before I delete all the other stuff. So I'm going to first rename the open-end one. Apparently I can't spell. Open var. I copied and pasted that. Oh, I'm sorry. Recode var. That's not recode, it's rename. There we go. Okay, so see here's open-end now. Let's say, before I drop out all of them, I wanted open-end at the bottom, right here. So, and actually this is the way I really usually do this, is I come in here to the GUI, I move stuff to the way I'd like it to be, right? And then I can come in here, and I can go like this, and I'm going to come in here and go, okay, I'm going to say match files keep, and I'm going to paste. And you paste them, and what this is doing is it's telling SPSS to put them in the order. Well, it's saying to keep these, really. It's just I'm tricking it. So I'm going to say, let's, you know what, and let's get rid of all of these. Oh, darn. And this is, I'm going to have that same thing where it didn't want to open this. You know what? Let's go ahead and run the full thing because that should take care of it. I don't know why. I think it was maybe the file was in use. I'm not sure. There we go. So now we have the file, but we want it to order, right? So now when I run this part, it's going to move them into order. But let's say, you know what? I don't really want variable 9. Okay. So now when I run this, it reorders, sorts them, puts them in the order you want them, and dropped out the one I didn't want. Well, what if, like in the example right now, which all this came up from, was I only want to actually, right now, I want to play with this, and I want to have a nice clean data file, so I'm not getting confused with what I'm doing. I can see it easier. Often my strings are really long, so I want to have it nice and wide. Instead of doing, well, I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep the open end. What I should have mentioned was there is a you can swap out keep with drop, and you can specify only drop a certain variable. But here we'll stick with keep. So now I just got rid of all of those other things, and also let's say sort. I'm going to sort it by open end, and that my default was ascending, but I'm going to say descending. And so now I have all of these right here. Let's say I was trying to code these in, oh, I see a couple Alice's here. So let's say I was looking for anyone who entered Alice anywhere, right? So I have this nice little code I've written here, which makes it really super easy for recoding data. So I'm going to say Alice. And actually, that's enough for me because people type things incorrectly, and I'm going to stick with that. So if Alice, and I'm going to say this flag, I'm going to say Alice equals 1. But before I do that, oops, sorry, I want to say compute. So first I'm going to create an Alice to equal 0, and let me go ahead and run that, and then do an executable. Oh, I got rid of it. To show you. So now I set everything to missing, right? For every row here, set them all to missing. Now, what I'm telling it to do, and I'm going to need this executable after this as well, because these are not hot, so you have to run executable after them. Anytime you look in this variable, first off, it'll automatically uppercase this, all the values in here before it compares. And then, regardless of if I type this like this, or like this, or like this, it'll look for the uppercased version of whatever I type here, compare it to the uppercased version of this variable, and if it's in there, it's going to change the new Alice variable to a 1. Okay? So now when I run this, we'll notice, oh, darn, I fixed it in the first one, but I forgot to fix it in the second one. So I'm going to, and this is the nice thing about syntax, right, is, oh, hey, not the first one. I'll clear these out, and I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to run, here also, you want to generally have fewer EXEs. Most survey research files are pretty small, so it's not a big deal. But having them not using execute every time will not have it read the data file so often. So now I'm going to run this, and I'm still an idiot. 2 L's. Like I said, I can't spell worth a darn. All right, 3rd time's the charm. There we go. So now and because these actually at one point on the other data set they had something, and so you know, let's pretend I want to say let's say I didn't want to include those. I only wanted this to be done if this had a value, and so in that case I'm going to come up here, I'm going to say do if not equal, I think it's like this. Strings are always fun. If it was a number, it'd be really easy. And I need to end if. And let's move this to here. So I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to run this. Here we go. Now notice it didn't put in ones down here, because I said, hey, only do these 2 lines if this part is true. And so if the open end is not equal to nothing, which I sound like James Brown. Anyway, it won't run, right? It'll just skip over it. And so now if I come back here and say descriptives on ALICE, it will show me the percent that I've caught so far. 18%, there were 11 total, 18% of them had Alice somewhere in the name. It could have been any, by the way, if I put it over here, and again, if I don't put the full thing, but I just type ALIC, now when I come back and run the code, and I'll run both. So it put a 1 up here now because it found it down here, and notice the mean changed, right? Because suddenly there's one more. But flagging, creating new variables, recoding with syntax as opposed to manually do it by hand, and again, after exporting and have to re-import, it is just a huge time saver. Okay, well that was longer than I was expecting, but hopefully you got a good idea of the value of using syntax. And next I'll try to maybe break it down and do a couple other things on the simple things. Thank you.